Are you looking to achieve massive success in your life without dealing with costly investment nightmares? If yes, then this is the podcast for you. Here, we provide engineers and busy professionals all the secrets and strategies to create multiple streams of income, build generational wealth, and live a meaningful life by design. Here's your host, Ted Patel.
Welcome back, Decoding Cash Flow listeners. Today, we have a very special guest, Zach Haptonstall. Zach is a CEO of Rise48 Equities. His mainly responsibilities as a CEO is overseeing all the acquisitions, sourcing capital, and building strategic partnerships. And within a short period of time, Zach has exponentially grown his business, and he has completed more than $1.5 billion in transaction, focused on multifamily properties. He holds master's degree in business administration from Grand Canyon University and a journalism bachelor's in journalism from Arizona State University. Welcome, Zach. Welcome to Decoding Cash Flow.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Ted. Really appreciate you having me on the show. Looking forward to providing some value to the listeners here today.
Yeah, it will be a great show, Zach. Thanks for taking some time out from your busy schedule. And so before we get started, on the show, normally I like to remind my listeners what the show is about. So here on Decoding Cash Flow, we not only focus on real estate investment strategies, but also try to provide the holistic approach towards decoding the personal growth that goes well beyond the financial gains, So with that, Zach, let's get started. If you can give our listeners a little background of yourself, what did you do before you got started in the real estate, and where do you stand right now? What are your current focus in the market?
Yeah, great question, Ted. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. Just grew up in like a lower middle class family. I had no real estate background, no rich uncle or anything like that. I didn't know anybody in real estate. And probably like a lot of your listeners, I was taught you're supposed to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and then you retire, right? So, I wanted to be a football player. So I actually had a football scholarship to a small Division II school in Colorado. And then I realized I wasn't going to be good enough or big enough to go to the NFL. So next thing I wanted to do was be a sports reporter. Okay. Because I like sports. So I got a journalism degree, and I was a live news anchor sports reporter for Arizona PBS, which, was cool at first. And then I quickly realized you can't make any money in journalism. And I had a bunch of student debt. And I was like, man, I gotta pay off this debt, because my parents couldn't afford to put me through school. So I had to take on loans. And I was working full-time nights and weekends while I was going to school, delivering medical equipment. And so after I decided I don't want to pursue journalism, I went into healthcare marketing because I need to make money, pay off my student debt. So I was working for a hospice organization, of all things, right? So hospice, for those of the listeners who aren't familiar, is basically mobile nursing, caregiving supplies for people with terminal illnesses. They come to their home, assisted living, wherever. My job, Ted, is I'd wake up in the morning, drive all around Phoenix, just walking in cold to hospitals, doctors' offices, assisted livings, and build relationships with, physicians, social workers, nurses. When they had somebody need hospice, they call me, and I'm the first person to meet with that family and educate them on the resource and get them signed up. So this is all 100% free for them through Medicare. And it sounds kind of weird, Ted, but hospice is actually an extremely lucrative and competitive private business industry. Okay, these are private companies which are federally regulated and reimbursed by Medicare. And so, long story short, I was fortunate to become probably the top hospice marketer in this Phoenix area. And Phoenix is the #1 market for hospice in the country. Florida is second. So just like you would think, it's sunny, a lot of, seniors that come here to retire. So by the time I'm 23, I'm making $150K a year, making more money than both my parents combined. I buy a house when I'm 23. I get my MBA when I'm 24, pay for it cash. I have no debt. By the time I'm 25, 26, I'm making $200K a year. I have no debt, just relentlessly saving, but I was miserable. Okay. I'm on call 7 days a week, doing something I don't want to do. And I felt like I had golden handcuffs, and I was truly stuck in the rat race. Cause I'm like, I know I make more money than most people, but I'm not happy. And in marketing and sales, you're only as good as your last month. Okay. So you could have a great month, and the first of the month comes around, it's all over again. You got to grind and you got to earn that. So I was trying to think, how can I like somehow gain control back of my time, right? And I didn't know what I wanted to do, Ted, but I didn't have any time to even figure it out. And so I knew nothing about real estate. I knew nobody in real estate. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, kind of like the cliche story, and that kind of helped a little bit, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So January 2018, I was so sick of my job, I quit and I sold my equity in that company. I had gotten some sweat equity from, doing a good job there. I was a partial owner. So I cashed that out, and my goal was I'm going to learn how to somehow create passive income through real estate. And I didn't know anything about multifamily or syndication. I knew nobody. Okay. So my plan was I had almost 300K of cash that I had relentlessly saved following the Dave Ramsey plan for like 4 or 5 years. And I had gotten a bump from that equity. And so initially I was looking at flipping homes. Then I realized that's transactional. That's not what I want to do. It's the same thing I've been doing. Then I learned about mobile home parks and how you can get good cash flow. I cold called over 90 mobile home park owners in Phoenix trying to buy one with my own cash and like a seller carry loan. And hardly anybody answered. Nobody wanted to sell. A few months into this, Ted, I started listening to podcasts like yours, and I learned about multifamily and syndication. And that's when the kind of light bulb went off for me, where the whole concept of me being able to leverage my time and energy to grow other people's money, because I knew a ton of people in healthcare who were miserable like me, physicians, healthcare business owners, administrators, but they could not get out of it. And so I was thinking, you know what, if I can be the one to help these people grow their money, I can earn sweat equity. Because I kept thinking, if I have like this 300K, how can I make this go as far as possible? But then I realized, well, I can actually create money just with my effort. And so that's when it really went off. So long story short, 10 months from when I quit the job, I wasn't getting any traction. Okay. I was burning through savings. I was losing my confidence. It was really tough for me because I'm like, what do I do today? You call the brokers, you read the books, you go to conferences, you meet with people. It's really difficult to break into this. Okay. And because I didn't know anybody, I didn't have any family money, nobody could help me. But 10 months into it, I find a deal. I had underwritten like 30 to 40 deals, and it's a 36 unit, $3.5 million deal. And it actually pencils. Okay. I had met a guy named Robert at a conference who's now my business partner. And Robert, his wife was a physician, so they had decent net worth, liquidity, at the time, a few million. And so my net worth was like 300K. It was my cash. And so I brought on Robert because he had construction background and he could help us sign on the loan, net worth and liquidity. Robert and I tie this deal up, reached 25K non-refundable. My plan was to syndicate it. I had to raise 1.4 million to close this first deal. I go to all these people I had talked to in the several months prior to that who said they might be interested. None of them want to invest. I'm like, oh crap. Now what do I do? I've got 25K non-refundable, got to raise 1.4 million. And I had just blown through cash, Ted. Okay. Cause I was going to conferences. I joined a mentorship program, which was 30K. I had no income coming in that whole time. And so I now have about 165K left. Okay. I put 160K of the 165 into the deal. Pretty much all my money into this deal. I was all in. I talked Robert into putting 275K in. I met Bikron, our third partner, while we were in escrow. I talked him to putting in 150K. And then I found a 1031 exchange investor who brought in 650K. We brought a couple other people in and we bootstrapped this thing. We did a tenant in common or a TIC structure and we got it closed. Okay. So that was how we closed the first deal. And then from there, we started syndicating, and obviously there's a lot of stuff that happened in between there, but that was February 2019. We closed the first deal. We've now acquired 43 assets worth over 1.7 billion, 7,600 units. We've gone full cycle, executed the plan, sold 11 of those. We're now in Phoenix and in Dallas. And we've got, vertically integrated property management, construction management companies that we've built out. We have over 230 plus full-time W-2 employees on full healthcare benefits. And so the first 2-3 years, we had almost nothing to show for it. But then we built the infrastructure and kind of hit this inflection point where we could grow exponentially. So that's kind of how we got to where we are now, Ted.
Wow, what a great story, man. From journalism to hospice care to multifamily.
That's right.
What a hustle, it's really inspiring for many of the listeners, who are still stuck in their job. They got a high paying job, but they don't have time, they don't have time to spend with their family. They don't have time to do or enjoy, what they love doing, especially their hobbies, traveling, whatever it is. Everyone wants to get out of their 9 to 5, but they need to find a way out, So not everyone has, I would say, has a capacity to, just take this kind of leap of faith, I would say, leave the job and just get started into some business.
Right.
But for people who want to get started, right, just like you, what are your recommendations? Like, how,
Yeah.
if they are doing a 9 to 5, they're doing a job, they want to get started into the real estate business. It might be anything like multifamilies or storage unit, any kind of business. What are your suggestions? How can they get started?
Yeah, great question, Ted. So I think when you're looking to do this, and I learned this through my own experience, is that you need to really start to identify and narrow your goals and your focus. Because remember, when I went into real estate, I didn't know anything. Okay. And so I didn't have exposure. So I started realizing like, wow, real estate is so vast and overwhelming. There's multifamily, there's self-storage, there's, mobile home parks, the home single family flip. So you need to understand what is it in real estate you want to do. And then let's say you want to do multifamily. Is your goal to be a passive investor or is it to be an active syndicator, right? You need to understand what your goal is. And you also need to understand what is going to be the time commitment and effort needed to achieve that goal. Because like you said, Ted, a lot of people, they've got kids, they got a family, they got a job. They're just simply not in a position to be able to take that big leap like I did. And I was fortunate at the time, I didn't have a family. I was dating my now wife, Grace, but I was in a position where I could, take that risk and take that jump. But you need to identify what is it that you want and what can you achieve. And then, after you've done that, you can start to, narrow what are the next steps, right? And so if you're trying to be a syndicator, for example, I know I talk to people all the time and try to give advice to people all the time that are in the same boat that I was in. And I tell them, you don't need to go buy 100-unit deal right out of the gates. Okay. It's very difficult to start. I was like that. I was like, I need to buy 100+ units because everybody tells me that's how you get economies of scale.
Yeah.
You need to go buy like a 5-unit deal or a 10 to 20-unit deal as your first deal. Our first deal was 36 units, which is actually pretty big. But when I started, I was so set on 100 to 200 units. That space is very competitive. And without experience, it's going to be difficult for you to even be able to close on it because of the debt requirements, raising the equity, et cetera. So I tell people, get the first deal done at all costs, whatever you have to do to get the first deal done, even if you don't make money personally, because you're going to gain so much experience, you're going to gain confidence, you're going to gain momentum. And I call it your quote unquote in the club, right? So we go to all these conferences and meetups, and there's thousands of people across the country that want to get into this. The difference between people that have done one deal and 0 deals is significant. Okay. If you do one deal, I don't care if it's a 10-unit deal, you are quote unquote in the club because now you've actually closed the deal and you need to go through and execute that plan. You need to oversee renovating the units, doing the value add. And even if you haven't sold it, right? Let's say you own the 5-unit deal, the 10-unit deal for 6 months and you renovated 5 units and you've increased the rents. Well, now you've gained credibility and experience. You can take that credibility to show other investors. You can say, look, I bought this 10-unit deal. We renovated half the units. We increased the rents. We increased the value. Now I'm buying a 20-unit deal. Would you like to invest? Because now you've created a case study where you can go to other people to show you're not a complete rookie. So getting that first deal is very difficult. And you're going to probably need to bring in other partners. You need to have somebody who has net worth liquidity who can help you sign. And maybe that's your family. Maybe it's a family friend. Maybe it's a random guy you meet at a conference, like with me, right? And you need to make yourself appeal to other people. Like if there's other people that want to do this, what value can you bring to them? And you need to identify what is it about the business that you like? What is it that you're good at? And what do you not like? What are you not good at? What I realized, Ted, is that, I have an MBA. I've taken like all these, high level accounting classes, but I hate underwriting. Okay. I hate sitting in front of a screen. And I was doing that in the beginning. But when I met my partner, Bikram, our CFO, he has an economics degree, CPA. He was a corporate auditor. He loves financial modeling. He doesn't want to talk to people, right? I'd rather be talking to people, raising money, finding deals. So we were the perfect complementary fit because my weaknesses are his strengths and vice versa. So you need to understand if you're going to get into this, first off, what is it that you want to do? What do you like to do? Identify your strengths and then go find somebody who will fill your weaknesses because it's very difficult to do all these different dimensions of the business by yourself, right? So that's kind of my advice when you're trying to identify what you need to do.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. It's just it's, as you said, right? It's the first deal. Once you have the first deal, the ball starts rolling.
Yep.
You have the investor base, you build the confidence, not only with your investor, but within yourself. You have the confidence, okay, you can take a bigger deal now.
Yep.
Yep. Zach, as you said, right now, your company is vertically integrated. You have about more than, if I'm not wrong, 200 employees, about
Yeah,
200
200,
employees.
200, 230.
230 employees. So within the short period of time, right? Starting from 2018, when you started your first deal, to scale, hire these many employees, structure your company properly. Like, tell us something about the company structure, I would say, and how would you fit into the company structure, and what are the factors that you keep into consideration while expanding your company?
Yeah, great question, Ted. That's a really important thing. So first off, I will say that I was fortunate that at a relatively young age, I had a position where I was the president and co-owner of a hospice organization, and we scaled that company from 50 to 110 employees in like 18 months because we grew it quickly, and then we sold it to a private equity firm. And so I had gained experience with quickly scaling a company operationally, as in regards to identifying what departments do we need to build out, recruiting, interviewing, hiring, training, delegating, and having high level oversight and vision of how to build out a company. Granted, it was a different industry, right? It was healthcare. It was not real estate and asset management, property management, but it was good initial experience. Now, with Rise48 and our real estate company, Bikram, Robert, and I were doing every little minutia detail you can imagine for the first 2 to 3 years, meaning that, we were doing acquisitions, talking to brokers, underwriting. During the acquisition, I was doing all the loan docs, communicating with the lenders council, our council, making sure that whole process goes well, raising the money. Post-closing, we're doing asset management, investor relations, distributions, accounting, everything that you can imagine. We had to do all of that, all the nitty-gritty details, just staying up till 1 or 2 a.m. a lot of nights to get this stuff done. And so we learned that stuff. Once we started to sell our first couple deals, we started to get flushed with liquidity, right? Because we went full cycle. And around the same time, Ted, what happened was, this is around the end of 2020. We sold our first deal, that 36 deal I was talking about, more than double the money. So all of a sudden, I'm flushed with cash. And when we started to sell deals, we were getting flooded with investor referrals because investors were happy that they got a good return. They're referring their colleagues, friends, and families. And around that same time, we had bought like 5 or 6 deals. We had established a pretty good reputation with the local brokers. So right around the same time, I'm now getting off-market deals from brokers, getting the best deals at the lower basis, seeing them first. I'm able to raise more money because I'm selling deals and getting more investor referrals. I have more liquidity, and we started charging acquisition fees on our new acquisitions. Okay, so near the end of 2020, it was just the 3 of us. We converted our company to an S Corp so that we could now start taking salaries ourselves, right? And be 100% locked in focus, not have any other jobs or any income sources. March of 2021, we opened up an actual office. And at first it was awkward because I would just show up to this office every day at 9 a.m. and I was the only one in there. I'm just sitting in an office. So we got an office lease and we started immediately hiring out staff, right? So we hired, our first hire was an asset manager. So Kaylee was our first employee. She had been she'd been our regional manager at our third-party property management company for over a year. So we already knew her well. She knew our portfolio. We poached her, made her our asset manager. We then hired a transactions coordinator, Brady, who can do all the paperwork during the closing because I was doing all that. And it takes a ton of time dealing with a lender, all this stuff. Then we hired a construction manager. Like all this happened within like 4 to 6 weeks. We hired a construction manager who would basically manage all of our vendors and our construction crews to make sure that everything was going well. And shortly after, we hired an accounting manager. So we had done all these minutia details and we knew the time constraints of each department between Bikram, Robert, and I. And we said, okay, how can we, the three of us, focus on our highest and best use? How is my time best spent so that I can grow the company and we can do a good job? And so we started to hire people, and we personally trained them on what we needed them to do. And we started building out those departments, right? So when you're going to scale, our whole philosophy is that if we're going to keep buying deals, we have to scale responsibly. You have to keep up with your operational infrastructure and keep building it, training people, and make sure you're managing these assets accordingly if you're going to keep buying more. And so everything we were making, we were reinvesting in the company to build more infrastructure with this long-term horizon. Okay. And then, about almost a year into hiring the first employee, we determined, you know what, we need to start our own property management company, because we cannot rely on third-party property management. We got to it was good for the first 1,000 units. When we got to 15, 2,000 units, we needed more continuity, more control. We started our own property management company, and we hired, full accounting staff, regional directors, all these different things to take full control. We hired a full-time recruiter. So we have Asha, who all she does is post ads, do phone screenings for new positions, set up interviews for managers, directors to interview these people. So now we have fully built out departments. We have a full accounting team with almost 20 full-time W-2 employees. We have a controller, an assistant controller, property accountants, AP, all these different positions. We've got financial planning analysis, 5 full-time analysts. We have an investor relations department, full-time people. We bought this building. So we outgrew 2 5-year office leases. So last summer, June of 2022, we just bought our own office building. Bikram, Robert, and I, we bought a 21,000 square foot office here in North Scottsdale, and we occupy the entire thing. We don't have to worry about outgrowing our space, right? So basically we've taken everything, all the money we've made, and we reinvest into infrastructure with this idea of building for the long term to be able to perform. And that's how we've been able to continue to grow responsibly and to make these deals perform.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. This reminds me about, a book called Who, Not How. I'm not sure if you have
I
read
have
it.
not read it.
Yeah.
I need to. Yeah, no, I've heard of it. I've heard it's a good book. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good book. It just gives the perspective of, how, instead of focusing on how you can do it, find the person who can do it for you, so that you can spend your time on some more higher task, or, where it needs more of your attention.
No, it's true. Yeah. And that's what we've learned firsthand, is that you can scale and you have so much more bandwidth when you have the right people in place.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Zach, just now, with these many units under belt, right? How do you see the market situation right now? With, the interest rate is on the rise. The cap rate is still not catching up with the interest rate. The spread is still too big. So what are your current underwriting, factors that you take into consideration while for the new deals, I would say?
Yeah, good question, Ted. So yeah, I mean, obviously interest rates have gone through the roof. Deal flow overall is down because most sellers don't need to sell and they don't want to sell. Values are down at least 20 to 30%, okay, from where they were the first half of 2022. Okay. And so right now, across the portfolio, our whole philosophy is we're not going to sell anything this year. And we've told investors we're not going to sell, because I'm not going to sell a deal and give a buyer a discount just to sell in the short term. And, because of the way we structure our debt and our deals, we're in great shape. We don't need to sell. We're not distressed. We've never done a capital call. We don't plan on doing any capital calls this year, next year, or beyond. But we are aggressively buying deals when they make sense. And when I say aggressively, I mean, we're underwriting deals every day, trying to find deals that make sense. It's a true needle in a haystack. Okay. So the last several years, there's been a lot of deal flow, but there was a ton of competition, right? Needle in a haystack. Now there's less deal flow, but there's a lot less competition. Most of the institutional private equity firms have been on the sidelines since last summer. Most syndicators can't raise money. Okay. So that's why we strategically planned in November of 2022 to enter Dallas and pound this new market, because I realized we've got like a 12-month window here where there's going to be very little competition. We can come in and build out our portfolio. And so, we're recording this right now, third week of June here, 2023. We've closed 5 deals this year. one a month, January through May. We have another deal closing here in July, and we have 2 more deals under contract. Okay. So we'll probably close at least 10 to 12 deals this year in 2023. And to answer your question though, it's very difficult. Since last summer, we're assuming 0% organic rent growth in year 1 for every deal in Phoenix and in Dallas. We have subscriptions to CoStar and to RealPage, some of the leading multifamily analytics companies. We're assuming 3% organic rent growth year over year, years 1 through 5 average, so our year 1 organic rent growth and our 5-year average organic rent growth are both more conservative and lower than what CoStar and RealPage are projecting. Okay. And then for our pro forma rents, we always personally secret shop all the comps nearby so that when we're saying we're going to renovate units, it's not too aggressive and that those rents are already being proven out. In Dallas, it's tough to find deals everywhere, but in Dallas right now, deals are hard to make work because interest rates are a lot higher, right? You also have much higher property taxes that you have to assume when you take over, and insurance has skyrocketed the last 6 months. So we just did an analysis, Ted, a couple of weeks ago, and we've now done more than this, but as of a couple of weeks ago, we've underwritten since November of 2022 to end of May 2023. So about 6-7 months. We underwrote 169 different deals in Dallas, Fort Worth, all from brokers. Only 4 of them penciled, 2% hit rate. Okay. And so it's a real grind to find these deals, but the deals are out there, and every single deal that has penciled for us, Ted, there's some type of distress with the seller where their interest rate cap is about to expire, their loan term is about to expire, and they have to get out of the deal, and we're buying it at a very low basis. Okay. So we're buying deals at least 20 to 30% less than what they would have traded for first half of last year. And in order for a deal to even pencil right now in our model, there has to be a significant discount. It has to be a very low basis. Otherwise the numbers don't work. And the only reason anybody want to sell for that low of a basis right now is because they have no choice, because they're distressed, right? On average, those 169 deals, on average, we have been 19% lower on our price, our max price that we can offer than what the seller wants. Okay. And so anyways, I mean, it's a pretty significant delta between what sellers want, what buyers can get to, but the deals are out there and we're starting to see some distress. It's just not widespread like I think a lot of people thought it would be.
Do you see in future like there will be more distressed deals coming out?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's tough to say. So I think you will start to see a little bit more, cracks in the armor, so to speak, second half of 2023 going into 2024. A lot of people have said that, a lot of these 2021 loan terms were 3-year terms will expire in 2024. But I mean, it's hard to say. I do think you'll see a little bit more, but I can tell you the majority of multifamily that's owned throughout the country is owned by large private equity firms, and they are very well capitalized, and they are in a position to pump money into these deals to buy new interest rate caps, and they're sophisticated. So they have long-term horizons, right? And I spoke on a panel in January in California, a private equity conference. I was on a panel with Blackstone and some other groups. And those 2 days that I was at the conference, I was talking to all these private equity groups, and they were just nonchalantly saying, oh yeah, we're just infusing capital. We're doing our own capital calls into these deals because nobody saw these rates going up. So I think these private equity firms are better positioned to weather the storm because they're so well capitalized and they haven't been spending money really since last summer. Syndication groups with retail investors, you do a capital call and you have 200 investors who invested $50K each, they get pissed off. Not a lot of them want to put in more money, right? And so if they don't want to put money in the deal, you have a liquidity issue, and then you need to sell. So you will see more distress in general with deals that have retail investors. And I can tell you, Phoenix is a very institutional market. There's not as many syndicators as a market like Dallas. Dallas has a lot of these mentorship programs, and you've got more syndicators by nature. And so we've seen more distress in Dallas. But yeah, I do think it will start to pick up some more because you've got, a lot of these 2-year interest rate caps. Most people didn't put we've always done 3-year caps on every deal. Most people did 1 or 2-year caps. Okay. So people that bought deals in the second half of 2021, because like first half of 21, you got to remember there was still kind of that COVID hangover, right? So people were kind of slow. Transactions were slow. second half of 21, things started picking up, and people were like, oh, everything's going to be okay. COVID's not an actual problem.
Yeah.
And so those people who bought those deals with 2-year caps, those caps will start to come expire. And so that's when they're going to get out of these deals, in second half of 23.
Yeah. And I've heard like many companies, they have stopped the distribution, they have long way back, like since last year, they have stopped the distribution. Have you done any of your projects, or you have been?
Yeah, good question. Yeah. So we paused distributions on 5 out of our 32 deals. Okay. So not very widespread. And all of them have been 2021 acquisitions. So in 2021, we were still buying 3-year caps. We were still raising plenty of cash reserves. We just weren't buying as low of caps and buying and raising as much reserves as we started doing in 2022. Once we saw interest rates start to skyrocket, we adjusted our underwriting. So yeah, we've paused on 5 2021 deals, and that's purely just to have enough liquidity in place so you don't run out, at the property level. And so we've kind of showed investors, hey, we have plenty of cash liquidity in place. We're doing this pause to be proactive so that, in a year from now, we wouldn't want to run out of cash. And with our investors, everybody has a preferred return, right? So it's not that they're losing money. It's not that we, the sponsor, are getting any money. Their preferred return is accruing. And once we sell or refi or when rates come down, we have to fully catch them up. So yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know a sponsor across the country who hasn't paused on some of their deals, if not all of them. And it really started happening like Q3 of 2022 is when people started pausing. Calls really started becoming prevalent in Q1 of 2023 this year. And now it's like widespread. A lot of people are doing capital calls, and a lot of people are hurting right now.
Yeah. It's better to stop distribution, right? Rather than doing a capital call later on down the road. So
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So what do you think about in the near future, right? What do you think about the interest rate coming down, or what are your expectations? Like, if I think maybe interest rate might go up at the most like 25 basis point, right? That's my my thinking. But what is your take on it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Fed is all over the place. It's kind of ridiculous at this point, like with their mixed messaging. I mean, I can tell you that we had 10 consecutive interest rate hikes, right? And then in June, a couple of weeks ago, they finally paused, but now they're saying they might do another 1 or 2 interest rate hikes. And I feel like what they're trying to do is they want people to stop spending money, right? To slow down inflation. So they're trying to increase unemployment. And they have to be very selective with their public messaging because of sentiment, and the perception will determine consumer behavior. And so I think right now their concern is they say, oh, we're pausing in June. Then it makes people think we're at the ceiling of the interest rate hikes, which I think we almost are, if not. And now they're like worried that people are going to start spending money because they think that we're at the ceiling and the economy is going to be okay. So I almost think that they try to put out this negative messaging saying there could be more hikes just to discourage people from spending money and getting so that inflation doesn't, go back up. Because logically, it's ridiculous that they would do another hike, because you've seen these massive cuts the last 3 months in the trailing 12 inflation. So all they would do is wait another 60, 90 days. It might actually get down to the 2% that they want on a trailing 12 basis, right? Because it's down to 4%. It just cut like almost 100 basis points in the last 30 days on the trailing 12 basis. So I think I agree with you. I think there will be at least 1 or 2 25 basis point increases. I believe, though, we're close, if not at the top. I mean, I can tell you like 3 or 4 weeks ago, our banker at JP Morgan told us that internally, they were projecting 3 25 basis point cuts by the end of the year. I don't know if that will actually happen, but regardless of what happens this year, I think we're almost at the top, if not there. And I think that in the Q1 and Q2 of 2024, I think you'll start to see these cuts become pretty significant, because regardless of your political affiliation, you had to realize you have a Democratic administration coming up for re-election. And I understand that the presidential administration is supposed to be independent from the Fed, but this administration is going to want the economy to be looking good going into this re-election, right? And by then, I can't see that inflation is that high. It's already at 4% now, and it should keep trending down. So I think you'll start to see these aggressive cuts next year. And when that happens, cap rates will also compress and values will go up very quickly for these multifamily deals. So right now we're just focused on controlling what we can control, which is maximizing NOI. So we've increased the velocity of renovations across the portfolio in 2023. We're cranking through renovations with the goal of maximizing NOI. So even if rates don't come down next year, because our first interest rate cap, Ted, does not expire until June of 2024. Okay, for the 20, we've sold 11 deals, and the longest deal that we've owned right now that we haven't sold, we bought it in June of 21. And so our whole thing is, if rates don't come down, we'll be able to increase NOI enough to where we can refi out of those loans and get another interest rate cap. If rates do start to get cut next year, our values will go up very quickly, and we've maximized NOI. We can start selling deals. So yeah, I think that we're near the top, if not at the top, for the rates.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and the other thing is, right, US right now, we got trillions of dollars of debt. The higher the government keeps the interest, the longer the government keeps the interest rate higher, it's harder for them to fund these debts, you know.
U.S. can't service their own debt for this long. You're right. The U.S. cannot service their own debt for this long, and they know that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, a lot of this stuff is bluffing, because their only thing they can lean on is inflation, right? Well, if that comes down to 2%, what else are you going to do? You know?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So as you talk, right, you said you are doing a lot of value construction, you're remodeling the apartments. On that part, what are the other value adds do you do in or in the other words, I would say, what are the other things that you do to add value to the property in addition to just refurbishing or updating the apartments?
Yeah, good question. So, yeah, good question, Ted. So we have a pretty uniform strategy on every single deal we do. It's all, rinse and repeat. So for every new deal, we immediately go into the exterior and completely rebrand the asset. So we rename it. We do a new monument sign with an LED backlight, which helps the curb appeal leasing activity, new marketing banners, landscaping, 3-tone exterior paint. And then depending on the deal, we'll add amenities like a fitness center, dog park, playground. And then on the interiors, we don't build any new structures, and we don't change floor plans. So we don't buy lumber or any of these materials that have been subject to heavy inflation, but we do a very high level interior scope. Okay. So a lot of groups will do like lipstick on a pig. We do a very high level scope. We take those interiors down to the studs, and we do brand new gray vinyl plank flooring. We do a real quartz countertop with undermount sinks, modern plumbing pull-down fixtures, subway tile backsplash, stainless steel appliances, brand new cabinet boxes with shaker doors and brushed nickel hardware, 2-tone paint, LED lighting package, new baseboard. So it's a full interior scope. And by the time we're done, it looks like a Class A luxury interior finish, but it's in a workforce housing type of product, which is still affordable and where the majority of the population lives. That allows us to drastically increase the rents, which increases the value of the asset and gives us that profit margin for the investors. And, we have our own construction management in-house. We also buy all of our materials directly wholesale from an overseas manufacturer. So we control our supply chain completely. We buy things in bulk months in advance, and we make all of our construction crews use our materials. Just this year, Ted, we've renovated from January through the end of June. We renovated over 950 units across our portfolio in the last 6 months. And our average rental increase is over $400 a unit. And so there is no organic rent growth, but value add is still alive and well, right? So you can still renovate these units and get these rental increases if you're executing a business plan.
Yep, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. As you know, we also are involved in luxury single family construction as well as small multifamily ground up construction.
Sure.
We also, have a supply chain, we import many things out of country from China. We get all the containers with all the basic materials that we need for our construction project.
Yep.
Yeah. So it does help. It makes a lot of difference.
It does. It gives you a huge advantage for like not only the availability of your supplies, right, but your price where it's locked in, which is key.
Yep. Absolutely. All right, Zach. keeping time in mind, right? Let's go to the last round of questions.
All right.
Just if you're ready, you
Ready.
can. All right. So first one, what is the one book that you will recommend to our listeners? The one that had the most impact in your life?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. There's been a lot of books that I've read and I frequently reread them. And it also depends on, where you're at in your journey. One book that I'm rereading right now that comes to mind is called Mastery by Robert Greene. So it basically takes a lot of the most successful people in history as case studies, like Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, Leonardo da Vinci, and it talks about how the whole concept of the 10,000 hours, right? Where they had to really build up, they had to relentlessly attack what they were doing, and they were working more hours at a faster rate and more concentrated than their competition, which made it seem like they're geniuses, but in reality, they were just outworking everybody. And over time, when you're so focused on that one thing, you gain subconscious advantages, and you can just become a higher level and just really dominate your competition. So for me, that really resonated because when I quit my job, Ted, I wake up in the morning, I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Like I knew I wanted to do this, but it was so disappointing and defeating because I didn't know how to move the needle. And so things like that would show me, hey, you might not see all these benefits, these concrete progress right away, but if you keep grinding, you can hit this inflection point where you make a lot of progress.
Yeah, and many people, they start hard, and after a while, if they don't see any progress or if they don't see any results, they just quit. They're not aware, like, the success is just a mile away. Just keep going a little bit more and you're gonna hit the success.
What is that? That's like the analogy from Think and Grow Rich, right? By Napoleon Hill. Like you're 5 feet from, it's like the guys that are mining for gold, they dig, and you dug a mile down and you've quit, but you were 5 miles or 5 feet away from the gold.
Away from gold, exactly. Yeah. Right. So, Zach, next question: what is the best advice, either business or investment advice, that you would give to our listener?
Yeah. So this is something that I had to learn myself and that I really tell people, and it's very simple. It's if you have a goal, my advice is don't take crap from anybody and don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. Because I encountered a lot of people that I thought would be quote unquote mentors who told me, oh, that's too big of a goal. You can't do it, because they felt threatened or they hadn't been able to do it. And so they told me that I couldn't do it. So just keep in mind that if you have a goal, no matter how big it is, you can achieve it. You actually can. You just can't give up. You have to keep grinding. And remember, anybody else who wants to tell you you can't, the irony in that is what I've realized is that for somebody to tell me I can't do something, well, that person is not the one that's going to put in all the work that it takes to get the result I want. I'm the one that's going to put in the work. So who are you to tell me I can't do it? So I think that we're always trying to seek advice and mentorship, which can be great. But if you have a goal that you know you want to do, don't take advice from people who aren't on your team. And if they don't support you 100%, don't listen to them, no matter what they've achieved, no matter who they are, even if it's your own family. Like my own parents were like, what are you doing? You were making $200K a year. Why would you leave all of that? Because they didn't do it. They don't, not that they were critical, but different people have told me stuff. So I think my advice is like, when you want to be an entrepreneur, regardless of whatever business it is, you have to have a relentless warrior mindset where you can't take crap from other people. You can't listen to other people if they're not for what you're trying to do. Right. And I'm all for taking advice if it's productive and helps you, but take it with a grain of salt. Right. And so just keep forward with what you got to do.
Yeah. You need to be surrounded by the like-minded people, right? Who thinks like you, who works like you.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. One more question. Second last, I would say. How do you like to give back to the world?
Yeah, good question. So we have a charitable organization we started called Rise Up, Give Back. And so my wife really leads it, but we donate to Phoenix Children's Hospital. So it's one of the leading children's hospitals in the country here in Phoenix. We donated $35,000 this year. We support Stop Human Trafficking organization. So that's a big one for us. And right now we're in talks with like Phoenix Police Department to see how we can support, our local police department. And so there's a lot of different things that we like to do. And then as far as real estate, I always like to try to help other people who are trying to get into this, give them advice. I have people who are trying to get into it, and I'll tell them, I will literally make all the introductions to brokers for you. I'll give you my Rolodex, all the people I know, because I don't view other people as competition. It's competitive enough. There's a lot of deals to go out. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we like to do to give back to the community and to people that are in this industry.
Well, you guys have been doing a great job helping kids, police department, everyone out in your community. That's great. So the final and last question, how can Decoding Cashflow listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks so much, Ted. Yeah, if you wanna get in touch, you can set up a call with me. If you're interested to learn about our investments, you go to Rise48Equity.com and you can set up a call on my calendar. You can shoot me an email, Zach, Z-A-C-H at Rise48Equity.com. Happy to talk to you, and really appreciate you having us on the show here, Ted. It was a lot of fun.
It was great having you on the show, Zach. Pleasure all mine, and we'll keep in touch.
Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks so much, Ted.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to Decoding Cashflow, brought to you by Aster Capital. If you found value in this episode, then please share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. And make sure to act on what you've learned. If you want Ted Patel to personally help you reach your goals, then feel free to set up a one-on-one call with him. Also, visit us at astercapital.com for more free resources. Content of this podcast is for informational purposes only. As always, please consult your own advisor before making any investment decisions or setting a course of action. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Decoding Cashflow, and we'll catch you in the next episode.